grade 10s. So for our first assignment, we are going to be working up to writing an obituary. But before we do that, we need to make an important distinction. Now, if you've ever read the paper or looked at a paper online in the obituaries or passages section, you'll have probably noticed two different kinds of entries. Now, one is called a death notice, and one is actually called an obituary. People tend to use this word to refer to both of these kinds of writing, but they're actually different. So let's take a look at some similarities and differences. Now, for starters, both of them announce a death, right? So saying, okay, this person, this is their name, this is their age, they've passed away, right? Just alerting the public, basically. And of course, they're both published in the paper, print, online, whatever. Now, the main differences are in the length and in the content. So a death notice is going to be very short. It's just a few sentences, and what it's going to talk about is just basic facts of what's happened. So just for context, a death notice is going to be released probably the day after the person passes away, right? The family's not going to start writing this whole essay about them. They're just like, okay, here's what's happened, name, age of death, place of death, manner of death, etc. And more importantly, this is where the funeral is going to be, and if there's some kind of wake or celebration of life afterwards, there will be details about that. An obituary is longer. This is going to come a few days, maybe a week or so after the person passes away. And this is, like when you see a really long column in the obituary section, that's an actual obituary. So it'll be a few paragraphs, and it honors the deceased's life. You're basically telling this person's life story and broadcasting it to the public to let them know, hey, this was a person that was really important to our family, this is all the things they've accomplished, we miss them dearly, etc. So like I said, your first assignment is eventually going to be writing a full-length obituary, but the first part of it is going to just be a shorter death notice. So like we talked about when we were looking at a T-chart, a death notice is very short, a few sentences, maybe a couple paragraphs, just giving this very basic information. So the assignment itself is to pick a fictional character and write a death notice about them. So that could be a character from a book, a movie, a TV show, a video game, whatever you like, but they have to be a fake person. So don't write one about your friend or yourself or about a teacher. Choose a fictional character, write it about them. So what's going to be in this death notice? First thing, we need to know who died, right? That if you put one thing in this, it's gotta be the name. Next thing is the age at which they passed away. So if you choose a fictional character who died in their fictional world, then you should have that information. But let's say you wanted to pick somebody from a TV show that you like and that person's still alive, you can be a little bit creative with that, right? Like you could choose the age at which that story existed, you could age them 50 years and say they passed away at an old age, whatever you'd like in that sense. Next, we need the place of death. So in a real death notice, this is usually a hospital. So you could put this fictional character in Winnipeg and say, oh, they passed away peacefully at the Victoria Hospital in Winnipeg, Manitoba. If there's a hospital in that fictional character's world, you can use that. Again, I encourage you to be creative about this. Next, we need the manner of death. Now, we have to be careful here because let's say somebody passed away from an illness. Now, you would say something to the effect of, passed away after a long battle with this, right? If somebody was in a car accident, you're not going to be like, oh, this person was just annihilated by a truck. You're going to word it in a way that's respectful of that person, of the people reading it, of the people close to that person who's passed away, right? So you're going to be using language that's solemn, somber, respectful. Funeral details and celebration of life details. This death notice is the first thing that a lot of people see. This might be the way that a lot of people find out that this person has passed away. So if they want to attend the funeral, you're going to be giving the date, the time, and the place. So again, you could choose something in Winnipeg, like it's going to be at this church, at this address in Winnipeg on this day, or you could make something up. Most funerals do occur in houses of worship or in funeral homes, so keep that in mind. Celebration of life. Some religions have traditions where after the funeral, after a burial or cremation, the loved ones get together with anybody who'd like to come and just celebrate that person's life. And this is just a little more jovial than a funeral, but if you'd like to include that, then you would put details about that as well, like a wake, for example. And then finally, if you read death notices and obituaries, you'll notice that a lot of them at the end say something like, in lieu of flowers, please donate to Cancer Care Manitoba, right, if the person's passed away from cancer, for example. So this is optional, but the reason this exists is because when people find out that someone's died, they of course want to do something to help the family, right? So they're thinking, okay, what's a nice gesture? And they'll often send something, food, flowers, something like that. And so a lot of families are like, well, I don't need flowers, so what is going to actually make a difference? What's going to help other people? What's going to honor this person's legacy? So they'll ask for donations to a specific charity or to a charity of your choice. Lieu, by the way, is just a fancy word for place, in place of flowers. So this is optional, depending on the person and how they passed away. You can choose to put that in, but this is basically what this is going to end up looking like. Remember, you are making almost all of this up, so be creative, be respectful, be creative, and yeah, I can't wait to see what you come up with. So here's the rubric that we're going to be working with. So you'll notice it's divided into 4 equally weighted sections. This weight is going to change a little bit for the full obituary, but just for the death notice, it's going to be out of a total of 12 marks. So first is content. So what is the content of the death notice, right? Did you include all of the necessary information that we were talking about before? Is everything there that needs to be there, and is it good quality? Organization, so that's going to be just kind of the flow of everything, right? So this is where your writing skills are going to come in. Is there kind of, it's not a story, you don't need beginning, middle, and end, but does it flow? You know, like you're not going to start with the funeral details and end with the name, right? So the middle is how you organize that is kind of up to you, but there should be some kind of structure that makes this make sense, if that makes sense. Style is how it's written. So remember how we were talking about using respectful language? So that's where that's going to come into play, right? This is getting released to the public. This is how they are finding out that someone has passed away. You're not making jokes in this. You're using respectful language to refer to how they died. So that's where those marks are going to be. Mechanics, that's spelling and grammar. So of course, like I said, this is released to the public. You want to make a good impression, right? So making sure we're capitalizing where we need to be capitalizing, using our grammar, spelling things correctly. That all counts for marks as well. This should not be news to you. So yeah, all of that for a total of 12 marks. Please email me if you have any questions.